So core is built out virtually every function of a college or university in terms of revenue solutions, technology and digital solutions, and institutional operations and capital solutions. And this is all part of a supporting organization and as what we call a public benefit corporation. That's what core is. We know that there's stresses on the business model. We know that there's declining consumer demand in addition to the demographics. But many will say our financial model is broken. Our financial analysts and research department has gone through well over 100 different audits to take a look at what is the gross margin that's being produced from just simply delivering academic programming. And it is just inadequate to be able to support operating expenses and the necessary, what I'll call the below the line expenses to support an organization. So a lot of structural deficits and basically colleges that just consume a tremendous amount of external cash. So we're going to start to think about capital because capital is very important. So traditionally what we do is when we're out there building a campaign, we're launching a building or wanting to build a field or growing our endowment. And then lots of donors are becoming fatigued and they just lose the inspiration for funding what I'm going to call needy needs of an institution. But there's incredible opportunity for what I'm going to call opportunity-based funding, particularly to transform the business model. But it does require a different mindset, a mindset of abundance versus scarcity. The scarcity mindset of we don't have money in our budget, we can't do this, we don't have donors. All the reasons why you can't do it really needs to be set aside. And this is where leadership, starting with the president and the board, can really make a difference. But money will follow ambitious, incredible plans. They'll follow vision and particularly presidential leadership. So if we think of a donor as an investor, the investor needs, what am I getting out of that? Now, even though it may be a philanthropic donation, that donor still needs to really understand the impact. And we've got to get a lot better. And with opportunity-based funding, there's incredible situations and opportunities where you can create that ROI and you can actually generate an amazing amount of investor confidence. We calculate this. How much do we need? Square one is prosperity gap. It's really a financial calculation. In the business world, we'll call it the quality of earnings. But basically, it's a calculation to determine kind of your incremental operating margin requirement that you need from where you're at today to a future prosperous state. But then you can build what we'll call strategic growth building blocks. This is initiatives that will significantly contribute operating margin to the institution to bridge that gap. And then the opportunity to create a financial model for each one of these. And you can use that financial model and the business case to be able to generate venture philanthropy to be able to help and launch the necessary initiatives to help the institution become prosperous. Far too many institutions, for a lot of different reasons, are heavily concentrated in undergraduate campus-based programming. Those institutions who really have a more robust financial model have more frequent revenue cycles. Why do we have to go beyond a campus-based undergraduate delivery modality? And it is simply one of the reasons is because it will be incredibly difficult to have a financial model that is in a marketplace that's in declining with price declines. But then what we can do is for each one of these, we can develop financial models for each one of the, say, 3 to 5 building blocks, and we can develop models over 5 to 7 years. What's the capital? Are there any one-time requirements? What's the capital required to achieve a positive operating result on each one of these initiatives? This is an actual example of an institution with about 45 million of tuition budget, 100 million of endowment. And their focus was incremental, no investment. And they really didn't realize how much capital they needed. As we were talking with this institution, it was really more about incrementalism. Now, let's double down on undergraduate campus. We don't have much money in the budget, but they really were unaware of the capital requirements. So after working and looking and saying, okay, what can happen here with investment initiatives? Now, this was a situation where typically I'll say an 80-20 rule or maybe a 90-10 rule. We have cut so far, there's not much to be cut. But there's a certain segment of the market where the cost of goods sold on delivering education is incredibly poor, and the endowment size does not support that. But then there was investments here. You can see that in this model, this required almost half as much capital long term. It did require some capital up front to invest in new initiatives, but without those investments, they were going to be left alone on scenario number one. Who owns the capital strategy? President is critical. It's number one because capital is going to follow great vision. But the board has a responsibility, a big responsibility, because if the institution is going to transform, the board also has to participate in its own transformation. So who owns the capital strategy? The board owns it. Now, sometimes the board doesn't want to own that. They say, well, that's up to the president. And clearly the president's leadership is critical. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with the board. The board has to make sure that the resources are there in order to have the institution remain in a healthy and prosperous state. Venture philanthropy is probably, you ask 3 people, you might get 8 answers. But it is a different type of mindset where donors who will see the value in making an impact investment. But where they're interested in is on the right. New divisions, business model transformation, entrepreneurial ventures, ventures that you can show an ROI, that are high impact, and they're inspirational. So who are they and where are they? They typically will know your institution. They may be current donors giving at a modest level. They may be donors who no longer support your institution. Maybe they've just lost confidence. So creating the business case, you can create multiple business cases around initiatives. You definitely want to have a description of how the investment is going to be used and implemented. Each business case should have a target specific areas or opportunities that will activate interest, a detailed financial model with ROIs, and the strategic impact, including the financial impact. And don't forget the stewardship plan, how you're going to steward, how are you going to report back? Stewardship becomes a very important part of the presentation. In real estate, particularly if certain properties can be liquidated, particularly if there's no strategic use. We actually have an internal real estate team. Now we've run already 3 projects, but just simply turning it over to the local realtor is just not enough. You will run national and global processes and actually expand the market, which has the opportunities then to generate more funds. Again, here's just some summary of beyond. I just showed you a few of the things, but beyond that, we've already been involved with real estate transactions, and it's all part of when we go back to the comprehensive supporting organization that CORE is. We're an operating partner, so we will get involved with growing and diversifying revenue, having your stabilizing and modernizing technology, and institutional effectiveness and capital strategies. But we're here to be a partner with our private colleges.